Alright, so today we're going to be talking about decks that you can get for under $100 or euros. They've been seeing success in recent months on the regional and national level, and what I really like is they're quite different among themselves, so you can decide which playstyle suits you. And another good thing that I mention and emphasize in every single of my budget videos is you can always add on top of it. You can just get cards, staples, whatever later down the line because the cores are very cheap to invest into. And if you have any of your ideas, please make sure to share them in the comments down below so people can be inspired from your comments as well. And if you liked mine, please make sure to give the video a like as well. So yeah. With the first deck we're going to be talking about, it's going to be Plunder Patrol. It's a really nice deck and people still don't really know how to play against it. Basically, it just reacts to what your opponent does. Like, you need to be thinking about their attributes because that's how your cards function. And some of that uncertainty was mitigated with the support card that generates you a token, so it's much easier to start your plays. But other than that, you still need to be able to think on the spot and just summon cards depending on what your opponent has. And I think it takes skill to do it. And what I really like about it as well is that you can pair a lot of hand traps and a lot of other cards as well, which means you can play the Adventure Engine, which I'll play in this deck a lot. And I get that it's expensive, but you can just wait for the reprint because none of the decks on this list are in fear of being hit on some kind of ban list. So you can just get the core and then add, like I said before. And speaking of another mid-range deck, I wanted to talk about Goldbright. Now, Goldbright saw success. We've seen some topping deck lists. For the most part, it was paired together with the Punk Engine, which you can also invest into. But today we're just going to be talking about Goldbright. You can get everything for under $100, and the Punk cards aren't that expensive either, so you can just invest into those as well if you want. And when it comes to the Goldbright deck, basically, it's really interesting. It just puts up different kinds of disruptions and like grinds you out of your resources to the point where you just can't make a comeback. It's really what mid-range decks are so good at, and I feel like Goldbright just fits into that category perfectly. Also, people are so quite unaware of what it does, and it's very hard to disrupt a deck like that, especially if it doesn't lose to just a single disruption. So it might be hard to throw random hand traps at the deck and just like, you know, hope that you're successful. And that's why the deck is able to shine. It's also dependent on some extra deck monsters, which, you know, cards like Baron maybe are a bit more expensive, but like I said, get the core and then think about all the additions later. The next one is Dark World, and this deck is... It's been kind of falling off because of Droll, and Droll really hurts the deck. But now the format sort of shifted. Droll is moving to people's side decks. It's not everywhere exactly, so Dark World just might be able to shine again. And it's really nice that you can just get 3 structure decks and have the deck built. Now you can just get some random cheap stuff in a trade or something, but if you want, you can just get 3 sealed structure decks and you're good. And it's basically a deck that spams out a lot of bodies, draws a lot of cards. It's paired together with Dangers, which aren't expensive in themselves as an engine either, so you can invest into that as well if you want. And then it either hand loops you, which is kind of annoying, or it just puts up different boards because of all the bodies it's able to generate. It also has a fusion monster in the extra deck, which is like a boss monster sort of, and it isn't bad at all. And just overall, the deck seems like it's very easy to pick up, quite easy to learn, so I feel like it's a very nice entry level deck. If you're just getting started or you want to play something that isn't very complicated, I think Dark World would be the deck for you. Then we have 2 more decks to discuss. The first one is going to be Jaichon, and Jaichon has been around for quite some time, and it's always been able to sort of hang in the meta, although there's quite a few things going against it. Droll was one of them, Shifter, Arise Heart, Bestios, but with the diversity still very much present in the format, I think you can catch people off guard with that deck just because it hasn't been that popular for some time. And I wanted to also mention it because it's very much a combo deck, so it plays very differently than some of the decks we've already talked about and will talk about on this list. And if that's something that you like, if that suits you, I think Jaichon would be for you. It doesn't seem like it doesn't have very linear plays. You need to look at your hand and really decide what you want to achieve, because there's some like 2-card combos And that's kind of basic, that's what you can go for. But then you can really make the most out of your 5-card starting hand and try to play around hand traps, think about what you can do if you get disrupted. And that's something I really like about the deck. And it's also very, very cheap to pick up. So then you can just invest into like extra deck stuff and stuff that's missing, which isn't a lot actually. And Jai-chan is also really nice in a board breaker kind of format because it doesn't have space to play like 15 hand traps or something very easily. So putting in cards that put in much more work and are more impactful, like some board breakers, like 2 or 3 places, I think is so doable. So that's why I think it's also a very nice contender. The last one on our list is going to be Dynamorphia, and I also wanted to mention it because the playstyle is quite different. It's a control deck. It plays a lot of chap cards, and if that's something that suits you, I feel like this deck could be a good choice for you. Again, very, very cheap to acquire, and then you just need to sort of like, it hones your skills of thinking and being able to sort of stop the opponent in the correct time. I think it's not that easy to play a control deck well. I think it's definitely not. And what you want to do is basically just slow the game down and grind them out of the resources. You have a bunch of chap cards, you have fusion monsters in the extra deck. Regilex is still very hard to deal with to some people, and the only thing you need to think about is that your life points will more than likely be lower than your opponents for the most part, so it's not that great to go into time, but if you can seal off your games quickly, I think this shouldn't be an issue. So we have quite a few different decks on this list, from combo to mid-range to control. So hopefully I provided some ideas, and hopefully you actually pick up some of these decks because they're so cheap to get, and you don't always need to invest like $300 into a competitively viable deck. And yeah, like I said, if you have any of your ideas, please make sure to also share them. And if you like the video, please like it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.